On the surface, it looks like a smart choice. Keep earning, keep saving, and stretch retirement a little further. Did you know that nearly half of Americans over 60 are still working? Not because they want to, but because they feel they can't afford to stop. But here's what almost no one talks about. Working past 60 can secretly cost you more than it helps, and those costs don't always show up on a paycheck. They creep in quietly, draining your health, your energy, and even your family time. Imagine this. You think you're securing your future, but the longer hours leave you too tired to enjoy the very life you're working so hard to protect. For many, the hidden price is higher stress, rising medical bills, and less time spent with the people who matter most. And even financially, the truth can be surprising. From higher taxes eating into your paycheck to unexpected changes in your Medicare premiums, many seniors discover that the extra income isn't as valuable as they thought. Working longer might feel like the safe path, but it can come with a trap no one warns you about. If you've ever wondered whether working longer is really worth it, hit like, share this with a friend, and subscribe so you don't miss what I'm about to reveal, because what comes next might just change the way you think about retirement. Lydora Mae was 63 when she made the decision that so many people her age make. She went back to work part-time. On paper, it seemed like the most responsible choice. She had spent decades as a dedicated teacher, guiding students through literature and history, and when she retired, she thought her pension and modest savings would be enough. But between her mortgage, the rising cost of groceries, and the growing desire to help her grandchildren with their college futures, her numbers never quite added up. So when a part-time position opened at a local tutoring center, she grabbed it. The extra paycheck, she thought, would give her a sense of security and keep her finances in the safe zone. At first, it seemed harmless, 3 days a week, just a few hours at a time. Lydora Mae even enjoyed feeling useful again, sharing her knowledge with kids who needed extra help. But slowly, something began to change. She noticed that by the time she came home, her energy was already drained. The housework piled up, family dinners got shorter, and visits with her grandchildren became less frequent. She didn't have the energy to bake with them on weekends or attend every soccer game. The very people she wanted to support with her extra income were the ones she was unintentionally drifting away from. Her health, too, began to take a quiet hit. What once felt like a rewarding routine turned into long evenings of aching joints and sleepless nights filled with worry. A few missed doctor appointments here and there didn't seem like much, until they added up. Instead of feeling financially secure, she found herself paying more in medical bills and prescriptions just to keep up with the physical toll. That part-time paycheck, once a symbol of security, was starting to feel like a leash. And then came the financial surprise she hadn't counted on. The extra income didn't stretch as far as she thought. Taxes took a larger bite than she expected, and her Medicare premiums went up because of her added earnings. Suddenly, the math wasn't making sense. She was working harder, but somehow she wasn't keeping more. Even though she had stepped back into the workforce to protect her money, she realized her health, her freedom, and her relationships were paying the higher price. Lydora Mae's story is not unusual. It's one many seniors quietly face but rarely talk about. On the surface, working longer seems like a lifeline. But beneath the surface, it can pull you away from the very life you've worked decades to build. Have you seen this happen to someone you know? Tell us in the comments. For Lydora Mae, the first warning signs came quietly. At 63, her body wasn't bouncing back the way it did when she was in her 40s or even her 50s. A single night of poor sleep now lingered for days, leaving her groggy and short-tempered. The stress of balancing her tutoring shifts with her household responsibilities crept into her life like an unwelcome guest. She told herself it was temporary, that once she adjusted, she'd feel normal again. But weeks turned into months, and instead of adjusting, her health was slowly unraveling. She noticed she was skipping meals to save time, relying on coffee to get through the afternoons, and putting off her regular checkups because, in her words, "I just don't have the energy after work." That choice, so small at first, carried consequences she never anticipated. One afternoon, while standing in front of her students, her vision blurred, her knees weakened, and before she knew it, she fainted. The paramedics told her later it was exhaustion mixed with dehydration and stress. For the first time, she realized her part-time work had cost her more than just her evenings. It had nearly cost her her health. The aftermath of that fainting spell hit harder than the fall itself. Medical bills for tests and doctor visits quickly stacked up. What she earned from her tutoring shifts over several weeks wasn't even enough to cover the emergency costs. The irony was brutal. The very job she had taken to stay financially safe had pushed her into more medical debt. She felt betrayed, not by anyone else, but by the assumption that working longer was always the answer. This is the hidden cost so many people over 60 never see coming. Our bodies change with age. Stress isn't as easy to shake off. Sleepless nights hit harder, and recovery from minor health scares takes longer. Seniors who push themselves into extended work schedules often find they're borrowing energy their bodies simply don't have anymore. And the truth is, once your health begins to slip, money can't always buy it back. This is why it's important for older adults to pause and reflect. Is the paycheck really worth the trade-off if it means losing the ability to enjoy the retirement years you worked decades to earn? Missing time with loved ones is painful enough, but risking your health can take away far more than you realize. But here's the twist. Money isn't the only hidden cost. Working longer can also shrink the very retirement income you thought you were protecting. And that's where Lydora Mae's story takes an even more surprising turn. When most people think about working past 60, the math seems simple. More hours equals more money. But for seniors, the financial system isn't as straightforward as it looks. Extra earnings don't just add to your income, they can trigger hidden costs that chip away at your retirement foundation. The first trap is tax brackets. Many seniors don't realize that even a modest paycheck from part-time work can push their total income into a higher bracket. That means you're not just paying tax on your new earnings, you're also paying more on the money you already had. For someone like Lydora Mae, her tutoring income looked like a safety net at first. But when tax season came, she was shocked to discover that her small checks were dragging her into a bracket where she owed more than she'd budgeted. What was meant to protect her savings ended up shrinking them. Then there's Medicare. Seniors often assume their premiums stay fixed, but Medicare is tied directly to income. Once you cross certain thresholds, your premiums can jump significantly. For Lydora Mae, her extra income didn't just cover bills. It pushed her into a bracket where she had to pay more each month for healthcare. That extra cost cancelled out much of what she was earning, leaving her asking, why am I even working if the system just takes it back? And perhaps the most frustrating trap comes with Social Security. If you claim Social Security before your full retirement age and still work, the government withholds a portion of your benefits. Many seniors discover this the hard way. Lydora Mae, thinking she was playing it safe, had started collecting early benefits. But because she worked, her checks came in smaller than she expected. The irony hit hard. She had less in her pocket despite doing more work. All of these factors, taxes, Medicare premiums, and reduced Social Security, formed a perfect storm for Lydora Mae. She was exhausted from long days, her medical bills were rising, and now her finances weren't adding up. Each month she saw a portion of her paycheck vanish before it ever reached her hands. She wasn't just losing time and health, she was losing the financial security she'd worked so hard to preserve. This is the reality many seniors never hear about until it's too late. On the surface, working longer looks like a solution, but in reality, it can quietly eat away at your future. Did you know this could happen? Let us know below. For Lydora Mae, the breaking point didn't come with a medical bill or a tax notice. It came on a quiet Thursday evening. Her granddaughter, Hannah, had been practicing for weeks for the school play. She'd begged her grandmother to come, even saving her a front row seat. But the tutoring center was short-staffed that night, and when the schedule was handed out, Lydora Mae told herself she couldn't afford to say no. She worked her shift, smiled at the students, and tried to ignore the ache in her chest as she glanced at the clock. By the time she arrived at the auditorium, the stage was empty. The play was over. Hannah ran up to her, still in costume, her face glowing with excitement. "Grandma, did you see me?" Lydora Mae froze. She hugged her tightly and forced a smile, but her eyes burned with guilt. In that moment, the paycheck she had earned felt hollow. What she missed was priceless, and no amount of money could buy it back. That night, lying awake in bed, Lydora Mae finally admitted something she had been trying to avoid. The real cost of working past 60 wasn't just her aching body or her shrinking paycheck, it was the time she was losing. Time she could never reclaim. Time with her family. Time with her friends. Time to rest, travel, or simply enjoy the freedom she had spent her entire career working toward. This is the hidden truth few people talk about. After 60, your greatest currency isn't money, it's time. Every hour spent at a job is an hour not spent on the things that matter most, laughing with grandchildren, nurturing friendships, or building memories that last. The cruel reality is that the older we get, the more valuable each day becomes. And yet so many seniors end up trading those days for paychecks that don't even stretch as far as they thought. For Lydora Mae, the missed play became a turning point. She realized that if she didn't make a change soon, she would look back on her 60s, not with joy, but with regret. And regret, once it sets in, can be far heavier than any financial burden. The question she faced is the same one many people watching this may feel in their own hearts. How do you protect your financial security without sacrificing the moments that give life meaning? So what's the alternative? Because quitting too soon can feel just as risky. After that painful realization at her granddaughter's school play, Lydora Mae knew she couldn't keep going the way she was. Quitting outright felt dangerous. Her mortgage and bills weren't going away, but she also couldn't afford to keep sacrificing her health and her family for a paycheck that barely made a difference. What she needed wasn't just to stop working. She needed a smarter way forward. The first step she took was downsizing her expenses strategically. Instead of cutting everything she loved, she looked at the leaks in her budget. She cancelled subscriptions she rarely used, refinanced her mortgage into a smaller monthly payment, and even found a local program that offered discounts on utilities for seniors. These small changes freed up more cash than her part-time tutoring shifts had been bringing in, without the exhaustion. Next, she discovered the power of turning hobbies into low-stress income. Lydora Mae had always loved reading stories to children, so instead of commuting to a center, she began tutoring kids online from her living room. The hours were flexible, the pay was steady enough, and she didn't have to sacrifice evenings with her grandchildren. It wasn't about chasing a big paycheck anymore. It was about creating income that fit her life, not the other way around. She also learned about maximizing Social Security timing. By pausing her benefits for a couple of years, she realized she could increase her monthly check significantly for the rest of her life. This wasn't an option she had ever considered before, but after talking to a financial counselor at her local senior center, she saw the long-term benefit of patience. Sometimes the smartest financial move isn't working longer, it's waiting smarter. And then there were senior tax benefits and community resources she had never tapped into. From property tax relief programs to senior meal plans and transportation services, she found that her community was full of hidden help designed to ease the burden. By simply asking questions and seeking out local support, she was able to save hundreds each month, money that no longer had to come from a stressful job. Lydora Mae's transformation was subtle but powerful. She no longer dragged herself into a late shift at the tutoring center. Instead, she worked gently from home, setting her own pace and spending more afternoons with Hannah and the rest of her grandchildren. She earned less, but she kept more: her health, her freedom, and her joy. And for the first time in years, she felt like she was truly living life on her own terms. Which of these options would you consider? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The shift in Lydora Mae's life didn't happen overnight, but once she gave herself permission to step away from the grind, everything started to change. Instead of waking up dreading another long day at the tutoring center, she now wakes to the sound of her grandchildren laughing in the kitchen. Mornings are slower, filled with pancakes, storybooks, and unhurried cups of tea. She no longer rushes through breakfast just to make it to work on time. For the first time in years, her mornings belong to her and to the people she loves most. Her health has improved as well. Without the stress of late nights and long commutes, she finally has time for regular doctor visits, gentle walks in the park, and even an exercise class at the community center. The nagging exhaustion that once haunted her has lifted. Her energy is steady, her sleep is deeper, and her days no longer end with aches that drain her spirit. What she lost in income, she gained tenfold in vitality. Financially, she is no longer chasing an illusion. By downsizing expenses and making smarter choices with Social Security, she now has a steady plan that works with a lifestyle instead of against it. She's not worried about every penny the way she once was. Instead, she feels confident, knowing her resources and her time are aligned. For her, peace of mind has become the most valuable dividend. But the greatest transformation lies in her perspective. She came to see that the real wealth of her 60s wasn't in the extra dollars she earned from clocking in at a job. It was in reclaiming her time. It was in showing up for Hannah's school events, in spending lazy afternoons with her friends, in enjoying sunsets without a looming work schedule. The life she had imagined in retirement finally became real, not because she worked harder, but because she worked smarter. And that's the heart of her story. Money matters, but not at the expense of your health, your family, or your spirit. The hidden cost of working past 60 isn't just money, it's your health, your time, and your joy. And those are priceless. For anyone watching, Lydora Mae's journey is a reminder that the measure of a secure retirement isn't just in the size of your bank account, but in the quality of the life you're able to live. Because in the end, the moments you treasure will always be worth more than the hours you trade away. If this opened your eyes to the real costs of working past 60, don't let the lesson stop here. Hit that like button, share this video with a friend who might be facing the same struggle, and subscribe for more advice designed to help you protect not just your money, but your health, your freedom, and your peace of mind in retirement. Your next chapter deserves to be lived fully, and it starts with choices you make today.